the HOPE framework is something that's really very interesting as I've started to study it. And what it does is it looks at four things, and HOPE is obviously an acronym, but it's housing, it's orders, it's profits, and then it is employment. And typically what happens is these are leading indicators that tell you whether we're heading potentially into a recession and how long to kind of expect it to take to get there. And so housing is usually the first to lead an economic cycle, whether it's a leading up into an expansion or leading down into a contraction, i.e. ending in a recession. So housing has been in a housing recession pretty much all of this year. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean prices, although they are down in some markets and up in others, but it means that the pace of sales has slowed significantly, and we're seeing that. So housing has been in a recession. And the next thing is orders, and that's orders of things like supplies and the things that we need to keep our economy going. And those have already also been in recessionary territory for quite some time. And then the third leg that kind of comes down after, as these rates keep going up and the lags go through the economy, impacting the cost of goods, impacting the interest rates that companies pay to borrow in order to buy supply and things of that nature, it takes some time. But corporate profits, we started to see really start to come down a couple of quarters ago, and you see that those are starting to really continue. And we've had a huge uptick in corporate bankruptcies over the last month. Yep. And so it's important to see that these things have kind of happened. The thing that's taken the longest, that surprised a lot of people, is that we didn't see a rise of unemployment. And so employment has been really resilient, and really typically you don't have a recession until employment starts to tick down. But what surprises people, because we don't live through a lot of these recessions, Casey, right? People tend to forget because they don't happen all the time. They typically happen every 5 to 7 years, but we haven't really seen a deep recession since the great financial crisis 15 years ago. So people tend to kind of forget what they are. But what's interesting is most of the time, employment doesn't really tank until after we're in a recession. So what we're seeing, though, is just in the last couple of weeks, there's a key indicator, and basically the change in the unemployment rate is really an indicator that is pretty strong in telling you that a recession is on the immediate horizon. And when the change of the unemployment rate gets to about 10% change in where it was the prior quarter, you know that we're probably in a recession. And right now, as of this last month, and I actually saw this through Adam Taggart on Thoughtful Money, the change in unemployment is now up 7%. So it's not quite that 10%, but it's really close, where the unemployment numbers have ticked up. The number of temporary workers that usually really ramps up until you're heading into a recession that start to really decline has come down significantly. And what that's telling us is that employment's finally starting to roll over. We're starting to get some elevated unemployment. And that is telling us that a recession really is on the very, very near horizon. And so